Thank you for joining. The webinar will begin in a few minutes. Thank you for joining. The webinar will begin in about a minute.
All right, it's time to get started. Welcome, everybody. I'm Katie Brooks, and I am the CEO at the Bend Chamber of Commerce. And I want to welcome all of you to our candidate forum for City Council. And we have a very packed agenda today. And so we're going to be moving along at a very, very brisk pace. So bear with us as we go through this afternoon. First of all, I want to thank all of the candidates. I'll be introducing them all in a moment for joining us today. And just want to take a brief moment to recognize to run for public office these days, it takes a real fire in the belly and a lot of commitment. And we want to thank all of you for putting yourself out there to be willing to be a public servant. So just want to say that up front before we get going with the Q&A session today. I'd also like to thank our sponsors, Miller Lumber, and also SunWest Builders. Both of these companies are sponsoring the candidate forums for City Council, County Commission, and our state legislative seats. We couldn't bring these without their support. So shout out to you folks, and thanks so much for your continued support of the Chamber and these forums. So here's what you need to expect from today. We're going to hear directly from the candidates about their policy priorities and really why they're running for Bend City Council. So those will be the opening statements. We're also going to hear from 3 different business owners here in Bend who are asking some pre-recorded questions just to prompt some discussion. And so you can kind of see where the platforms are from each of these candidates and how they weigh in on some of the questions that are out there for the business community. And then finally, we'll have a Q&A session where you all will get an opportunity to ask some questions. Just a forewarning, there are many, many folks that are attending today. We have a limited amount of time. We're going to do our best to get to as many of these questions as we can. And in the end, we'll also share all the contact information from all the candidates with you so you can follow up one-on-one if that's what you choose to do. Let's see, we'll also have references, sources, and candidate campaign information, everything you need to know, along with a recording of this session that we'll be sending out to all attendees. And of course, it'll be up on our website and on YouTube. All right, let's hear from our candidates. And as I mentioned before, we're going to start with an introduction, 2 minutes from each candidate. And we'll be sticking with a tight timeline. You might hear somebody coming on board and giving a 15-second warning, and then a final warning that the candidate needs to wrap up before we move on to the next. So that's what we can expect here in the next few minutes. And we have this list of candidates. I want to introduce them. For position number 1, Justin Livingston and Melanie Kebler. I believe that's the right pronunciation.
It's Keebler.
Keebler.
Thank you.
Thank you, Melanie. Keebler. Should have asked that before. Also, for position number 2, Anthony Broadman and August Paul Johnson. August may not be joining us today. We think there's some issues, but hopefully he'll be able to join later on. Position number 3, Chris Piper, Megan Perkins. Ron Buzel may not be able to join us today. We'll stand by for him. And then position number 4 is Rita Schenkelberg, Michael Hughes, and Bubba Walters. And Bubba is also running late, and we're hoping he will join us as we progress. So 2 minutes to each of you. I'll prompt you so you know you're up next. And we're starting off with Justin Livingston. Welcome, Justin.
Thank you, Katie. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you to the Bend Chamber of Commerce for hosting this forum. I look forward to the opportunity to let everyone know more about me and why I'm running for re-election to the Bend City Council. I'm a native Oregonian, a small business owner, and managing principal real estate broker. I've lived in Bend for the last 20 years with my wife, Carrie, and we have 2 amazing kids, 11 and 14. We also live in Southeast Bend. 4 years ago, I ran for city council to really focus the city on its core services and doing a good job at that. And then also to address the affordability issues in our city. When my wife graduated Bend High in the late 80s, there really wasn't much opportunity in Bend. And now there's a lot more opportunity today. We have a much more diverse economy. Unfortunately, people are getting priced out. I'm concerned for my kids and many others that they'll be priced out and won't be able to stay or come back to Bend if they so choose. So moving forward, I want to focus on affordable housing, keeping the city focused on its core services, providing infrastructure, and really rebuilding the economy. Because right now, I believe that's our number 1 issue, is rebuilding our economy after the impacts of COVID-19. I look forward to discussing these issues on this forum. And thank you again to the Chamber for hosting.
Thank you, Justin. And next up is Melanie Keebler.
Thanks, Katie. Hi, everyone. I'm Melanie Keebler. I'm running for Bend City Council position 1. And I am running because I want to bring my perspective as a career public servant to the council and provide bold, positive leadership for our challenging times ahead. I grew up here in Bend. I graduated from Bend High School, went to college in Michigan, and came back to Oregon for law school. I started my career working for the public as a deputy district attorney, first on the coast and then in the Valley. And then I became a victims' rights attorney for the nonprofit Oregon Crime Victims Law Center. I moved back to Bend to raise my young daughter here and to be near my family. We all know that we're going to have to help our residents and our economy recover from the pandemic, but that doesn't mean that the other issues that we're facing as a city have gone away. I want to lead on making our transportation system more safe and connected, making Bend more affordable by providing more housing and childcare options, and by making Bend a leader in the fight against the climate crisis while growing our own local green economy. I want to make sure that as Bend changes and grows, everyone here shares in the prosperity of that growth. Bend should be a welcoming place for all of us. Throughout my career as a public servant, I've learned how to listen to different perspectives, find a fair solution, and make sure that everyone really feels heard in the process. I will listen to all the voices in Bend and collaborate with private partners, nonprofits, and government entities to find community-based solutions to the problems we're facing. I'm ready to get to work for the city I grew up in and love. Thanks.
Thanks very much, Melanie. And Anthony, you are up next.
Thank you, Katie, and thank you to the Chamber for hosting this today. My name is Anthony Broadman. I'm running for Bend City Council position 2. I'm running because I love our city and I want to serve our community the same way I've served the public for my entire career. I serve federally recognized Indian tribes throughout the West as an attorney, as well as businesses here in Bend. And the City Council needs to be a good steward as our city grows. We need to plan for growth and put families and businesses and workers in a position to succeed. I will lead on ensuring that we have a safe, connected transportation system. I will lead on ensuring that if you work in Bend, you can afford to live in Bend. And I will lead to make sure that the city is a responsive and a dynamic partner to small businesses and workers as we try to emerge from the coronavirus. When I think of our incredible city, I think first of the land. I think of the water that brings so many of us here. I think of the original tribal people of this land who I acknowledge, including the tribal people in the Confederated Tribes of the Warm Springs. I think of the city mothers and the city fathers who saw this bend in the river and built a town. I think of the innovators who saw that timber was ending and built. Needs to be a point on that continuum. We need to be stewards and take care of Bend, not just for today, not just for my 3 daughters, not just for tomorrow, but for 7 generations to come. I think we can have a safe, connected transportation system. We can have affordable housing for everybody working in Bend. We can ensure that we are a good partner, a dynamic partner, and act quickly to respond to the needs of businesses and workers. I think we can ensure that the promise of our city is available to every single person in it. Again, Anthony Broadman, thank you.
Great. Thank you, Anthony. And Chris Piper, you're up next. I think you're still on mute.
And
There you
thank you, Chamber of Commerce. I'm Chris Piper. I've been a Bend resident for 15 years, currently a Bend City Councilor. My wife and daughter have lived here for 15 years, and we truly love calling this place our home. It has been my vision since being appointed to City Council and to continue, hopefully serving on City Council, to be a public servant to our community. It is to maintain our caring and tolerant community that is supported by a strong civic volunteer base that provides a true tapestry of skills which enhance the quality of life in Bend. And to enhance that quality of life in Bend, it will be my goal as councilor to continue focusing on the activities that I've already been involved with, which is economic recovery, transportation, affordable housing, and livability. That we continue on this path as an innovative and inclusive community with a sustainable and diverse economy that thrives on the true spirit of innovation, of how Bend was established and has grown, and entrepreneurship that capitalizes on new economic opportunities to focus on economic recovery and resiliency, and that we truly continue building upon our success via strong work ethic and productive working relationships within our community and as we grow with our regional partners. I look forward to serving and continuing to serve and being an exemplary public servant for the city of Bend and for the community in which we all live. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Chris. And next up is Megan Perkins. Megan?
Hi, I'm Megan Perkins, and I'm running for City Council position 3. And I'm running because I love the city and I want its growth and prosperity to be shared by all. I am a 5th generation Oregonian that has lived all over the country, and it was a dream come true when we finally moved to Bend. I'm a mom of 3, and we wanted to raise our children here and be closer to family. One of the things that I realized when I moved to Bend was that my experience here was very different than that of my 2 Black children. This concern led me to co-found a group called Embrace Bend, which is now a nonprofit working to make Bend a more equitable and inclusive place for everyone. I believe that commitment to community is everything. I have worked on my neighborhood association board with Moms Demand Action, as a Girl Scout leader for my daughter's troop, and on the site council for my children's school. I'm running to fight for economic equity in our city. Bend can become a livable and affordable community for everyone, but it is going to take some work. I will make housing a key priority on council. We simply need more types of housing for more people. I will support expanded transportation options that improve connections around the city and make Bend friendlier for bikers and pedestrians. And I will work to improve childcare options for our 0 to 5 population. I will work for a Bend where everyone can benefit from safe, complete neighborhoods, access to nature and recreation, and a strong economy, regardless of race, sexual orientation, income, and mobility. I will fight for a city that is accessible to its residents and will work to address barriers to civic participation. On City Council, I will represent our shared values. I believe strongly in serving my community, which the primary role of City Council. I've been showing up for this town from the moment I arrived, and I will show up for you as City Councilor.
Great, thank you, Megan. And Ron, you are up next. And Ron, you're a little fuzzy. If there's any way you can clear up your screen, but if not, you are up and on mute. So you need to take yourself off mute. Go ahead.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Katie, and thank you, Ben Chamber, for hosting this forum. I remember a time when I was protesting your events. I don't know if you remember that, when I stood outside the event at the candidate forum then and had people meet me for free when you guys were charging $20 for the public to come. And that's really core to the reason why I said yes to participate with you today, because the one thing I do agree with the other candidates is that we need to rebuild, take this opportunity, this pandemic, this crisis that we're in, as we rebuild our economy to fix a lot of the things that create homelessness in our town. We have two huge special interests that I'm running against. One is the real estate industry, as presented and represented by our Chris Piper, who I am friendly with as a person, but I'm not going to pretend, as so many people already are, that he's not already had a lot of cash dumped into his campaign without doing a thing. Or maybe the last 2 years, maybe he did do a thing or two with his voting and not understanding what creates homelessness. The same thing with my other opponent, who is representing the Democratic Party. And that opens up the conversation in a lot of different ways, which I will talk about, because we've got now issues on the table that are being represented by national interests. Not that the real estate industry is not a national interest as well. So I'm up against two very strong competitors. Did I lose my time?
You have a few more seconds.
Oh, okay. I lost my train of thought, but I will get back to it when I get my turn again.
Okay, thank you. Your time is up.
Thank you, Ron. Okay, next up is Rita Schenkelberg. Rita?
Hi, everyone. My name is Rita Schenkelberg, and my pronouns are she, her, and they, them. And I'm running for Bend City Council position 4. And so as I kind of reflected on why am I running? And there are kind of two parts to it, right? Initially, when I heard the statement that Bend City Council made in regards to the murder of George Floyd, it really showed that the local government has a lot of growing to do in learning about the effects of systemic racism within our local government. How is this affecting the BIPOC community members, and how can local government really support the BIPOC community members that have lived here, and as a queer person of color, how it's directly affecting me and my community. The other piece is local government directly touches all of the basic needs that the city provides. So talking about housing, talking about transportation, and talking about all of the humans that live here. So Bend City Council and local government have this direct link to support an entire community. And that's really why I'm that's really why I'm running. And the other piece of why I'm running is that we should live in a city that can provide all basic needs to all members. And as someone who is a renter, it's just incredibly important that we address the affordable housing crisis that we're experiencing here in Bend. You know, housing instability does not allow for anyone to really feel like they belong in a place or belong anywhere within the community, and also talking about all of the systemic racism pieces that fall into why affordable housing is so distant for many of the BIPOC community members. Also talking about transportation and safety on the roads. You know, when people are trying to walk and when people are trying to bike and to drive their cars and take transit, should the roads be safe? The answer is yes. And so Bend City Council has so much power to be able to make the road safer, including the transportation bond. Thank you all for having me today, and that is it.
Great, thank you so much, Rita. And next up is Michael Hughes. Michael?
Thank you. Thank the Chamber for hosting this event. My name is Michael Hughes. I'm an attorney and a farmer. I live here in Bend with my wife and my 13-year-old son and our dog Ella. And today I'd kind of like to talk to you all about some of the passions that I have so you can learn a little bit about me. Freedom. What is freedom? Well, freedom to me is the ability to be who you are without anybody telling you you can't be that person. Freedom is the ability to live out your destiny as a human being. Freedom is the ability to work, to earn a living, to support yourself and to support your family. Now, for 20 years as an attorney, I've been fighting for freedom. And I've been fighting for freedom for the people. I have always represented the people. And I have not only represented individuals in the criminal justice system who've been wrongfully accused and have fought for their acquittals and fought for their civil liberties, but I've also fought for property owners and their right to use their property as the law allows them to use. And I've also fought for small business owners so that they can try to struggle through the red tape and the regulations so that they can operate and make a living. And my whole career has been about fighting for liberty and freedom. And anybody who fights will tell you that fighting from hate or anger won't win many battles, but fighting for love will win almost any battle. And love is something I'm very passionate about. I believe in love. I believe love is the strongest weapon we as human beings have. And I believe love's greater than anything that could ever get in its way. And I believe if people lead their lives and their decisions are made and guided by love, that amazing things can happen. And I love Bend, Oregon, and I am very passionate about Bend, Oregon. And I believe in the future of Bend, Oregon. And I believe with appropriate leadership, Bend, Oregon can be greater in the future than it is now. And that's why I'm running for City Council position 4. Thank you.
Great, thank you very much. Okay, so it looks like Bubba Walters is unable to join us. So I think we've been through all of our candidates. And next up is this section where we have a few prompt questions from our business community. Before we do that, wanted to share with all of you candidates and also the audience some of the things that are priorities for the Bend Chamber of Commerce. Our board focuses on a set of priorities every year. And there are some issues that have been resonating for the past several years that will be very familiar to you folks as candidates as well. So priorities of the Bend Chamber of Commerce that I wanted to point out as we go into this section is affordable housing for our workforce and everyone who wants to live in Bend, transportation, making sure it's safe, we have connectivity and a good mobility, childcare. I don't know if I even have to say anything about that. We've done a few webinars on the lack of childcare and how desperate it's become these days. And then diversity, equity, and inclusion, and how we integrate that into our business community and community as a whole. And also economic stability and resilience, and how do we support our small businesses here in Bend and keep them up and alive and thriving. So with that, I'd like to introduce our first speaker from the business community. It's a little short video from Kirk Schuler from Brooks Resources. And can somebody prompt that video up for us?
Hi, my name is Kirk Schuler. I'm president and CEO of Brooks Resources Corporation in Bend, Oregon. Brooks Resources is a real estate development firm here in town that has developed residential communities, industrial parks, commercial centers, and even recreational properties. Our interest from a policy standpoint focuses on growth policies, housing policies, transportation, and quality of life. My question today is, what more can and should government do to help ease our affordable housing crisis?
Okay, and as I explained before, we've selected a group of folks randomly to answer each of these questions. And so we have 3 council candidates up for this. The first up is Ron Buzel. You are first to comment and you have 1 minute.
Thank you, Katie. You can call me Rondo.
Okay.
But I I think we can do one thing. Since we're all excited about spending $190 million on transportation bond that will actually create more homelessness in our city, let's do a $10 million homeless bond and let me be in charge of spending that money. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Up next is, well, August is not joining us, so I'm going to put Melanie up next. Melanie, would you like a minute to answer that question?
Thank you, Katie. So I think it's obvious Bend is still in the housing crisis that is happening in Oregon as well. We just simply don't have enough homes and not enough homes of different types in Bend. So what the government can do and the role the government can play is to not only subsidize and help get affordable homes built for people that are making under 80% of the average median income in our area, but also our city government can try to spur the development of different types of homes that are going to be affordable and accessible for people that are in that middle income area that just can't get into home ownership. There's no starter homes here for Bend City residents that are making that amount of money. So I support changing our code to reduce regulations and reduce exclusionary single family zoning, which has come from the state. I also support ideas like microhomes and tiny homes, which I think can be leveraged to also help our homeless population. And I want to make sure that we don't have any code barriers that are making these projects not pencil out, so that we see more duplexes, triplexes, and other affordable, accessible homes for people that are in Bend.
Great, thank you, Melanie. Up next, Justin, you have a minute.
Yeah, no, great question, Kirk. I appreciate the question. What I've actually been doing the last 4 years on council, 2 years prior to that on the Affordable Housing Advisory Committee, and will continue to work on, is allowing for more diversity of housing types and making them cheaper and easier to build, like we've done with ADUs, removing barriers in the development code, streamlining the permitting process, particularly with land entitlement. It takes way too long to entitle land to be able to build on it. Continue to invest in infrastructure and reduce offsite development costs, and then also to increase our land supply. We need to, and actually are part of our comprehensive plan is that we must do an urban growth boundary expansion within 5 years of the last adoption, which will be December of 2021. I will also want to do an urban area reserve after that process, because Bend really needs to have a broader look on how and where we're going to develop the next 50 years. We can't just continue to short little steps. We actually need to have a long-term vision, and the urban area reserve does that for 50 years.
Thank you, Justin. Okay, thanks to all of you for answering the first question. The next person up, I'm sure a lot of you will recognize Marty Smith. She owns 2 downtown stores, Ice Fine Jewelry and Gigi's, and she has the next question.
My name is Marty Smith. I own 2 businesses downtown Bend, the Ice Fine Jewelry and Gigi's Boutique. My question is, I would like to know how you can help small businesses like me this coming year as we recover from the pandemic.
Okay, and the first up to answer is Rita.
Thanks, Katie. I think this is an incredibly important question, as we know and see that the pandemic isn't really going anywhere. So the first step that Bend City Council can take is stop the spread of COVID, following mask protocols, continuing to socially distance, following all of the expectations and all of the scientifically based feedback that we've received. It's incredibly important that we do that. That's how we can continue to survive economically through this, through the pandemic. How do we keep our stores open? We make sure that the stores are safe. How do we keep the restaurants open? We keep the restaurants safe by having outdoor seating, by creating the space, by wearing our masks. It's super important too, as a Bend City Councilor, to have conversations with not only restaurant owners and business owners, but also the workers that are impacted. They're spending 8+ hours every single day being exposed to many different humans. Are they feeling supported? Are they feeling protected? And also talking to Ben Hempson, the city business advocate, and supporting him as he's passed.
Sorry about that. All right, that was a minute. Thank you very much, Rita. Next is Chris Piper.
Great. Thank you. And thank you, Marty, for your taped question. We greatly appreciate that. As city councilor, it has been a priority of mine as the liaison to the Downtown Bend Business Association to stay as engaged as I possibly can through attending their monthly meetings, to make personal visits to the small businesses in our core and throughout our city. As you know, as it's been noted and mentioned, COVID-19 has caused immense harm to Bend's local businesses and employees. I've worked with the Bend Business Relief Fund. I've helped partner and support the Chamber's Bend Business Relief services to the small to medium-sized businesses. And with the Bend Business Relief Fund, we've been able to provide 0% interest loans to local businesses to help keep their doors open and those employees on payroll. And that's what's the beauty about, you know, the public-private partnership that we've been working so hard as council to grow and build and make sure that businesses like yours remain and stay open and are resilient in this economic issue.
Thank you. Your time is up.
Thank you.
Great. Thank you very much for those answers. And thanks to Marty for the question. Definitely downtown businesses and businesses all over Bend are dealing with issues related to the pandemic and the recession. So our final question comes from Kirk Ermish. He's the owner of Elixir Wine Group. And can somebody roll that?
Hi, my name is Kirk Ermish. I'm the owner and founder of Elixir Wine Group. We've been in Bend 20 years, and we're a national wine importer and international producer of fine wine, and we're now more recently Deschutes County's first winery grape to glass. As a wine producer and wine sales company, we are used to regulation, and we hold wine licenses in nearly all 50 states. But we find that the licensing process at the City of Bend, for us anyways, have been among the most restrictive, most costly, and have been about the most difficult to navigate of any licenses we currently hold. Currently, we're hoping to gain approval from the city to offer gourmet dinners 3 nights a week with one of Bend's most celebrated chefs, Josh Podwills. My first question is, with the growth of food trucks in Bend during COVID, brick and mortar restaurants have been left behind. Restaurants are subject to many more fees, red tape, and regulations than food trucks are. Plus, some food trucks illegally dump in sewers when restaurants pay fees based on that use. What can you do to level the playing field to help bring back a restaurant economy to Bend?
Well, good question. Okay, so first up to answer that is Michael Hughes.
Thank you. I do think it's a good question. I think, first of all, the last part of his question really talked about an enforcement issue. If there are indeed people who are legally dumping things into the city sewer system, that's an enforcement issue that the city should really look into, because that shouldn't be happening. Also, potentially we should look into, if there are food trucks that have, and they do have this waste, is there a system that they can do it and then pay for their use of the system? What I don't want to get into is making it harder to operate a food truck, right? So what the answer really is to level the playing field is to make it easier to operate the businesses rather than making it harder to operate the food trucks. So if there's something that we need to look at as far as how the city is allowing restaurants to set up, the city isn't the only regulatory agency involved in restaurants. Also, we have some state agencies that are involved as well. But if we can, as a city, look to see what things can be done to make it easier for restaurants to get set up, that would be great, because restaurants are a foundation of our community. They employ a lot of people. And right now they're being hit extremely hard by the pandemic. And the city needs to look to see if there's any available funds that we could use.
Thank you. Great. Thank you, Michael. Next up, Megan Perkins.
I am married to a healthcare worker, and my kids are at home right now. And I imagine that restaurants, teachers, healthcare workers, you've had to deal with constantly, evolving mandates and protocols, loss in profits, and really an unpredictable future over these last 6 months. You have employees that you want to keep safe and employed, and you have a bottom line that's shrinking. You have increased regulations that are so hard to comply with. And I imagine that, you see other types of businesses that don't have those same regulations. But Bend needs our local restaurants. And the best thing that we can really do to help our local restaurants is to get a hold of this virus as best we can. And our city council needs to be leaders in this area. If the virus is contained, the restaurants can stay open. And our city really needs to be listening to restaurant owners, because they are the ones who really know how to improve safety. They're the ones who employ our workers. They want to make sure people get a paycheck. And we're just not there yet with COVID. And I know this because my children are still not back in school.
Thank you. Your time is up.
Great. Thank you, Megan. And again, thank you to all you candidates and accommodating us with these short periods of time to answer. The next up is Anthony Broadman. Anthony.
I told you it would be me who left it on mute. I apologize. Thank you, Katie. Thanks for the excellent question from Elixir. I initiated the program to open streets to restaurants downtown and businesses, and that is to keep patrons and workers and businesses safe and open. I was thrilled when the current city council voted to accept that proposal. I think it's the single reason why a lot of businesses have been able to stay open. The city needs to be a dynamic partner right now. We need to be addressing changes to our public health and our epidemiological situation quickly and responding and putting businesses and workers in a safe situation in which they can succeed. We need to, of course, effectively regulate food trucks to protect the environment and to keep everybody safe, just like restaurants.
Great. Thank you very much to each of you. All right, that ends our pre-recorded question portion of this this forum. And what we want to do is open things up and ask you folks to weigh in. We've already gotten quite a few questions in the Q&A section. If you do have questions, don't go to the chat button. Rather go to the Q&A. That's the one that we're looking at to kind of monitor what the questions are so we can ask the candidates. So we've divided the candidates up. From the rest of this point on, I believe we're doing by position seat. So we're going to go ahead, and it looks like our first question is in. This question is for Justin and Melanie, I believe. And the question is, something that's been on a lot of our minds, and the heartbreak of these wildfires that have been happening in communities that we all know and love. And I don't know about you guys, but it did scare the heck out of me as well. And wondering what your thoughts are on wildfire preparedness and what role the city should be playing in that. And Melanie, we'll let you go up first.
Thanks, Katie. So yeah, I think, I share your same sentiments about the feelings that I've had about the wildfires in our state, people that have lost their lives, their homes, and their businesses, and our first responders that have put their lives on the lines to keep all of us safe. I think the city needs to really be, again, a leader in this area. This is a crucial issue for our region. And as we saw in the last week, it's a health hazard. It's bad for business. It's bad for our economy. People can't get around town when these things are going on. So I think we need to be partnering with our whole region on our wildfire response, as well as the state. And this is another reason I think we need to lead on the fight against climate change, because these fires are getting worse. Our droughts are getting longer and hotter, in part because of climate change. And there are things that we can do to mitigate that, but we have to take strong actions on that. And I want to see Bend be a leader and a partner on pushing that forward for our own safety and health of our economy.
Thanks, Melanie. Justin, you're up.
Yeah, this issue really hits close to home. My great aunt and uncle lost their home in Talent. I've had many friends and family from the Willamette Valley that have been evacuated, friends that work for fire departments over there. So it really does hit close. And I really believe that we need to work on adaptation. We need to be working in the forest. We need to be thinning the forest. We have too many trees. The density of the trees per acre is far too great. And what the city of Bend can really do, though, and what we have currently in our goals is a wildfire resiliency plan. We're working on that. What does that look like? Building codes, possibly changing for homes that are within the urban space with the forest, evacuation plans. There's a whole host of things that we can do and we should be doing because it definitely could happen here.
Great. Thank you very much. Let's see. I was going to ask the next question about, looks like transportation is a theme in several of the Q&As that we have. And I believe this next question is for, bear with me here. Let's see, it's for Anthony and August. Is August joining us yet? I don't think he's here yet. So let's do Anthony and Rondo. Why don't the two of you answer this next question? And the question is around transit and the transportation bond. So it's a two-parter, apologize. Number one is, do you support the city's transportation bond, ballot measure 9-135? And secondly, the Hawthorne Station plays a big role in a centralized hub for transit. Do you think it's time to change the way Bend centralizes or supplies transit to the city of Bend? So the first question is, do you support the transportation bond? And the second part of the question is, what do you think about the Hawthorne Station and transit in general in Bend? And we're going to start with Anthony.
Thanks, Katie. Great question. I got into this race because of transportation, because we are sorely behind on the investment we need in our city. We need to invest in transportation to ensure that our kids are getting to and from school safely, that people have options, and that we have true east-west connections, including connecting the central district to the east side of town and downtown. It's a critical part of planning for growth. I support the transportation bond. It's a good start. It is not a silver bullet. It's not going to solve everything. I support the concept that is generally accepted regarding Hawthorne, that we need to move away from that being the sole transit center in Bend. We need to move towards mobility hubs, take the pressure off of Hawthorne and focus on a transit system that matches our exceptional city and is not putting all of our weight onto the Hawthorne Station.
Thank you. And Rondo, you're up next.
Quick shout out to Anthony there. Anybody who's riding his bike around town in that suit is all right with me. I'm also a bicycle commuter. This is a very complicated question. I'll answer quickly. Hawthorne Station's got to go. People who put that thing together years ago have admitted publicly that it was a very, very temporary situation and not really a good solution. And that neighborhood has suffered way too much with that mistake. We do need to diversify and spread out the transportation issues as well as homeless issues, which I'll do a little segue on this, because $190 million for a transportation bond is too much at one time. I find it insulting for us to be asked to pay for this vision. I would like to be asked as a voter for maybe $20-30 million at a time. I'm also very concerned that there's only maybe $8 million of this is dedicated to transit.
Rondo, your time's up. Sorry. I know it's so hard. Thank you. Okay, next question is going to be for, let me see. This is for Megan and Chris. And this question is going to be around childcare. And the question is, what can City Council do to help resolve the childcare crisis, both through the pandemic and beyond? And I'm going to go ahead and let Megan up first.
Well, thank you for this question. This is something that I think about and talk about a lot on this campaign, but also prior, having a 4-year-old. And, you know, I think the most important thing about childcare is that working parents deserve a safe and affordable and nurturing place to have for their young children, right? And we have huge gaps in childcare options now, and they've just been made worse with COVID. You know, a large percentage of our youngest childcare facilities have simply closed or just not reopened since COVID has come along. And so I think that there is a real opportunity here for the City Council to work and partner with the amazing work that the Chamber has already been doing with that coalition and the Childcare Accelerator position, to talk to developers and builders, to talk to Park and Rec, to talk to the county, to talk to businesses, to really take more of a leadership role themselves to make sure that we can.
Okay, I'm just muting people because.
Thank you. All right, Chris, you're up.
Yeah, thank you, Katie. And yes, a highly important question as I think what's happened with the COVID pandemic, childcare has become front and center. I think it's an area that we've, in a sense, prior to the pandemic, all taken for granted. It's been there, and now it's not. And our parents, parents are working 2 jobs, and now they're having to take care of their kids at home and manage that. It's quite stressful. Businesses are also having to flex and work with their employees, which is a great thing, but also puts an impact on that as well. The cooperation and partnership that the Chamber and the city are already working towards through the Childcare Accelerator program, which Katie and your team have spearheaded, has really brought it front and center. And as a counselor, that's an area that is extremely important and a focus. I was out at a new development over in the Northeast, and that is an area where there is commercial development with retail being established and location specifically for a child care center. This is an example and a model of what we as counselors can do to lead and move forward as we approach these issues in child care. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Thanks very much. Okay, next question. Lots of Q&A around diversity, equity, inclusion, and also the Human Rights and Equity Commission. I would love to have a conversation and folks answer. Let's see who's up next. Michael and Rita, to talk about what you think the role of City Council is with DEI and your specific view on the Human Rights and Equity Commission. And so we will go with Michael first.
Thank you. It's a huge question. It's an issue I've been addressing my entire 20 years as a lawyer, and I'm glad to see that the city has formed this commission so that we can start having some dialogue, and it's important. And so I think that's a step in the right direction. Obviously, the city can do other things to look at promoting diversity too, including regarding their hiring practices. When the city actually hires somebody, especially at a high-paying job, they could actually do a little bit better job of going out and looking and targeting and recruiting qualified minority and female candidates for those positions. There's actually businesses that can help them do that. If they do so, they do some recruiting. I talked to the manager, they do some recruiting, but I think we could do more.
Great, thank you. All right, there's been also a lot of chatter here as I'm looking. I know we've talked about housing already, but I want to go ahead and give each of you 60 seconds to tell me what your first things you would do as city councilor if you're coming into the position, or that you're doing as a city councilor now to increase affordable housing. And I'm going to go down the line, my list here.
If I could,
wasn't able to answer that question.
Yeah, I think Ms. Schenkelberg needs to answer that question too. She didn't have a chance to answer that question.
Oh, good grief. Thank you very much.
Michael.
Thank you for reminding me. Rita, go ahead.
I think that DEI is incredibly important in Bend City Council. I know that Alex has done some work with the Bend City Council in Bend, and what we need is a conversation about systemic racism within local government, a conversation about how systemic racism continues to work against people in all different platforms, that this has been written in local government and in the system as a whole. And so it will take a lot of work personally and from a systems perspective, and we have the tools to do it. And if we want to support the entire community, then we will do the work. I think that the Human Rights and Equity Commission is the great first step. I'm very excited for it. I'm hoping that Bend City Council moves forward very strongly and supports having many different community members on there, including parents, including humans that might be homeless, houseless, and other individuals that maybe have not been able to be on a committee before.
Thank you, Rita. My apologies. I'm trying to juggle a bazillion things, so thank you for your patience. So going back to the general question, because of the level of importance, seeing the median household income go from the upper 400,000s to now north of 520, 530,000. Housing for all of our citizens is becoming a huge issue here, and I don't think it's going to be changing anytime soon. And I want to give each of you 60 seconds to talk about that. And Justin, you're on my list as first, so go ahead.
Great. Well, yeah, this is actually an issue that I deal with day in and day out in my normal job as a realtor and as a managing broker. We have a supply problem, period. End of story. That is the problem. And we have to do all that we can to get more units and more land on board. And so, whether it's as the chair of their Bend Urban Renewal Agency, and, I shepherd through getting the urban renewal district in the Bend Central District so we can start getting more infill and more density in an area that's appropriate for it. Whether it's ADUs, we've seen a great increase in ADUs since my time on council. We just need to do an all the above approach and get more housing types, more just more units. And then, like I said previously, we need to do another urban growth boundary expansion. It's actually required as part of our last one. And then also just the time that it takes to entitle land is far too long. We have an affordable housing, deep restricted affordable housing project that's taking.
Thank you. All right, up next is Melanie.
Thanks, Katie. So we touched on this in the first question that we answered, but the crucial issue that we need more housing, and we need more housing types in Bend. We cannot make a plan to expand outward, acquire more land, and build more large single-family home-centered subdivisions. That is not going to increase affordability in Bend. So I'm in favor of infilling the land that we have within the city limits and within our UGB as much as possible. I'm in favor of gradually increasing our density, especially in places like our core area with the core area plan in the Bend Central District, which is a great plan for a revitalized core for our city where people can live in different types of housing, mixed use buildings, a really walkable, bikeable, and transit connected neighborhood. That's what we need to see in our planning going forward to make Bend and especially the housing market more affordable. Pushing out is not the answer necessarily, because that doesn't make things more affordable for people that are looking for different types of housing here.
Thank you. Next up is Anthony.
Thanks, Katie. Thank you for the question. The first thing I would do is refocus the Affordable Housing Advisory Committee to include 80% to 120% of area median income housing. They've done an exceptional job of improving the opportunities for housing in traditional affordable housing. That is 50% of 80% families with AMI. But let's use the resources we have. Let's use the frankly, the housing we all know is broken, and that is working families, working people not being able to afford to buy, rent, and stay in Bend.
Thank you. Up next, Chris Piper. Chris, you're on mute, I think. Still on mute, Chris.
All right, I'm back. I know my wife would like mute, but we're good. Hey, so yeah, I mean, I think we're all on the same page here. I mean, it is definitely putting financial strain on the working families. The seniors, they're being priced right out of their home. They've lived here forever, and now they're being priced right out of their home. And specifically for young Bend residents and businesses alone, they're having a hard time retaining employees here. So I think in terms of solutions, we do have to look at UGB expansion. I think it does give us an opportunity to reevaluate how we build affordable homes, what those developments look like. We look at the infill that we currently have. Land is very scarce right now, so expansion is important. We have areas within EFU, which is the exclusive farm use zone, and that is an area that we could look at. Farm use zones that can't even grow a crop because They've been rated an 8 in dry and wet conditions. With House Bill 3450 to look at. There's a lot of options that we can put on the
Your
table
time's up.
and begin to move forward and focus on affordable housing and get it.
Thanks, Chris. Next up, Megan Perkins.
I think there's two areas I'd really like to focus on right now. One is definitely our middle class, right? We have our cops, our nurses, our teachers. They cannot find a place to live, and they are essential people in our community. And you know, they're squeezed from above, they're squeezed from below. And I really would like, you know, us as a city council to focus on these middle income families and embracing the new code revisions that are coming from the state that will allow our neighborhoods to have duplexes and triplexes and cottages and townhomes. Because the more different types of housing that we have, the more we make it possible for people to buy into the market, the more we make it possible for first-time home ownership. I'd also like to talk about the importance of growing up and not out. I think that we should really be preventing sprawl as much as we can and increasing density, because I think that has the positive effect of really invigorating our city, using less resources. It's more environmentally sound, and it will provide more affordable housing for our community.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next up is Rondo.
I'm here. All right. We know that Bend has been one of the most prosperous cities in America for the last 5 years. The problem is that's not being, we don't have an equitable system to make prosperity be shared by all. The thing is, what we've got are a lot of people moving here without homes, and we're trying to find homes for them while we still have homelessness issues here in Bend. It's a real simple thing. We know what causes homelessness: passing huge bonds and spending lots of money, making lots of money without any attention to the homeless needs is what causes more homelessness. We are going to have a whole new wave of homeless when this bond passes, if it passes. Don't vote for this bond. We don't need it. Thank you.
Great. Next up is Rita Schenkelberg.
Affordable housing is incredibly important here in Bend. As someone who's a renter and has experienced housing instability here, it's a stress that humans are, it's really hard to function when you're feeling that all of the time. So some of the concrete things that I know Bend City Council can do is really talking about the code revisions and talking about increasing those housing units within our core area. I know that some of the candidates had talked a little bit about that, but when we look at the core area and we look at the BCD, there are some tangible solutions to really support all of the humans here who are renting or having to move constantly and really giving them a place to be. We want to keep the humans that already live here in Bend, and so to do that, we have to increase units that are actually within what they are paid day to day. When the average house is, when the median house is $500,000, you really can't expect a lot of humans to afford that of what people are paid hourly here in Bend.
Thank you. All right, and Michael.
Thank you. Obviously, this is one of the big issues that we're going to deal with in Bend. If you look at our current UGB, we're running out of land, even with the new stuff. And if you drive around town, we're running out of land. So we definitely need to start looking at the next round of expansion, because without more land, without more inventory, we're not going to be able to pursue some of the affordable housing projects that we need to, like Stillwater Crossing and some of those others. I think the city needs to look for more federal money to match their local incentives to help for some of these affordable housing programs. And I think today I heard one of the best ideas I've heard yet on the homelessness issue from Mr. Bozell, and that is a bond that would address the homelessness issue. That is why I love these forums, because I can hear all sorts of ideas, and sometimes we get a gold nugget, and I think today we got a real gold nugget when it comes to the issue of homelessness. So I would like to thank Mr. Bozell for that idea.
Great, thank you very much. The next question we're going to give to all of you is one that is going to give you a little free rein. And as I'm looking in the Q&A section, there's a lot of different takes on some of the things that need to be done first and some of the key issues for the city. So my question to all of you, again, 1 minute, is what would be your first policy initiative should you win this seat? And I'm going to go backwards this time. And I know for those of you who are sitting councilors that might be something that's already underway, that's okay. So it could either be something you're already underway or something new, whether you're new to the seat or just a new idea. I'm going to start with, we're going to go backwards. So Michael, you're going first.
Thank you. I think the first policy initiative I would address as a city councilor would be the economic impacts of COVID-19. I think there's a lot of people in this community, business owners and the people who work for these businesses who have been impacted greatly. And I think that has to be the #1 priority for the city, is to try to get our economic situation squared away so that we can be the city that has experienced the economic growth that we have in the past in the future. And I think that needs to be the city council's first priority, is to make sure that we are economically sound as we try to get out of this pandemic.
Thank you. And up next is Rita.
I think this is a really hard question, and I was going back and forth between like two kind of different policies, but really what I keep coming back to is the Human Rights and Equity Commission. How do we make sure that that is implemented, and that Human Rights and Equity Commission has power to have conversations with Bend City Council, with the police department, and all of the humans that are in leadership right now who really need feedback from the BIPOC community and all of the other communities that are underrepresented or not represented at all in the leadership here in Bend.
Okay, thank you. And Rondo.
Yes, I'm going to speak directly to this. Bend is a homeless making machine, and the real estate industry in this town has their hand on the crank. What I mean by that, as I've tried to express, right now we have a lot of people who are on the edge of being homeless, almost homeless. And that next rent increase, which will be the transportation bond, will come. Landlords aren't going to take that hit. They're going to find a way to pass that on to the renters, and we're going to have more homeless. So my job is to stop this homeless making machine. Thank you.
Yep. Megan, you're up next.
All right, I'm going to cheat and pick two. First of all, I agree with Michael. I mean, we have to deal with COVID. It has to be the #1 thing that the city council is focusing on right now. Because if we can't get a handle on COVID, we can't go, our economy cannot recover, our kids cannot go back to school. We just can't start rebuilding as a community. And I want to make sure that as we recover from COVID, and as we start this process of rebuilding, that we really look at who is disproportionately affected by this virus. And that is our essential workers, that is our small businesses, that is our Black and brown neighbors. And we need to make sure that as we recover, we're keeping them in mind and making sure that all of our policies and actions are geared towards those who are disproportionately affected. And if I can just, and the second would be really working on access and inclusion, because if we have a city council that people don't feel like they are a part of our city, they don't feel like they are really truly welcomed in our city, what is the point of hearing just one type of voice, one type of person, one type of industry with a...
Thank you. All right, Chris, you're up.
I'm unmuted. All right. I too believe that economic recovery would be the first #1 policy to begin working on as part of new council goals. We've already put forth policies in place that have supported, creating flexible payment plans and not assessing late fees on city customers. These are policies that came about through COVID-19 on ways that we can make sure that businesses are staying open, that our city customers are doing extremely well. I believe that this is a policy that we need to just continue to move forward with and enact and make it part of an economic recovery and resilient policy. I believe that there's opportunities to partner with other agencies within the city to help support this and bring it forth across the city so everybody can benefit on this.
Thank you. Great. And Anthony, you're up.
I'm going to cheat a little bit and assume that all of these passionate, intelligent people have accomplished everything that they just said, because I think these are all extremely important. And I would focus on the dozens of hotspots that the school district has identified as not being safe for kids to get to and from school. This is not just to keep my 3 daughters safe, not just to keep my wife's patients, she's a pediatrician, not to just keep them safe. But if we give safety and connectivity and options to parents taking their kids necessary if we are to reduce vehicle miles traveled by 4.5%.
Thank you. All right, Melanie, you're up.
Thanks. So I agree that our economic recovery coming out of COVID is going to be the priority that overlays all of our decision making as we come onto council. I want to specifically take an eye towards supporting our childcare providers here in Bend. They've been hit pretty hard, especially earlier this year. I know that, I couldn't take my daughter for several months. My provider was talking about how to stay afloat when their numbers were reduced because of the safety issues. So that's an issue I want to focus in on. I also want, if our transportation bond passes, I want to make sure that we have a really great advisory board that's going to help us direct our project priorities. And that board has equitable representation from people who walk, people who have limited mobility, people who bike, and people who take transit around towns to make sure those voices are helping lead us as we move through that project list. And finally, a huge priority for me is creating a permanent warming shelter for our unhoused neighbors. It is cold every winter in Bend. Every winter people are put at risk, and we need to find a space and get that done, and the city needs to lead on that.
Thank you.
Thank you. And Justin?
My number one priority would be economic recovery from COVID. Really what the city doesn't have a lot of tools in its tool belt to really help that, but the main thing is we need to get out of the way. As we heard from Elixir Wine Group, the city's permitting process to either start, grow, or expand your business, it's very cumbersome. It takes a lot of time. It's expensive. And so we need to streamline those, make sure it's easier to open and start a business or move a business here. Because I think that's the other side of the affordable housing coin, is that in order to reduce the gap between the median income and the median home price for that affordability is to raise the median income. And so if we have more prosperity and we have more people making a better income, they're more likely to afford the housing.
Thank you. All right, I'm going to ask one more question of each of you before we go into our wrap up. And I'm mushing, that's a technical term, several questions that I'm seeing in the Q&A queue. That is around east-west connectivity, around how we deal with density and equity in this community as we grow, and some of the housing, urban renewal solutions that were coming up is putting a lot more people in some places around Bend. Sometimes that's heavily weighted on the east side, some would argue. What is your perception of how we, I guess, keep the community bonded over this, how we deal with these issues of equity as we densify? When you're looking at the culture of Bend, what do you think your role is as a city councilor when you're looking at urban renewal, density, and connectivity? And I am going to start with Chris Piper.
Yeah, that is kind of whatever you called a mushy, a bunch of subjects. So I think right now we're in the process of just trying to begin to understand, what that truly means, which is, in a way unfortunate, but two, we've got a lot that we can pull and learn from in terms of how we go forward in development and looking at how we utilize our infill. We have a growing population that we have to pay attention to. And with that growing population, we have more diversity that's coming into Bend, which means different income levels. And we want to be able to retain those individuals here in Bend, be able to retain them for our employers and our employees. And I think that all comes into when we're making decisions around development and when we're looking at urban growth boundary expansions and when we're looking at infill. There's just, it's such a complex subject that I know that going forward in terms of council goals for the next biennium, this is definitely something top of my mind that we'll be focused on and figuring out how we can build that into
Thank you. Great. Rondo, you're up next.
Okay, my answer to this is a $10 million homeless bond, a $20 million transit bond. We need to solve homelessness before we figure out how to pile more people into Bend. Greed is motivating these conversations. People who know what caused homelessness know that affordable housing isn't about solving homelessness. We need to make Bend livable for all of us, and that ultimately will make Bend a more welcome city. Thank you.
Thank you. Anthony, you're up next.
Thanks, Katie. I'm going to focus on your question basically from a density standpoint. I think my internet connection is unstable, so I apologize.
It's okay, you're fine.
Density is coming as a function of state law. So we can all talk about what our views would be. I think the question for a potential city councilor is, how are you going to listen to Bendites about how they want density to manifest itself in our community? It's not a question of whether it's coming. It's not a question of whether growth is coming. It's how we are going to plan sustainably for it in a way that allows working people to continue to live in Bend, not just wealthy people, not just entry-level jobs, but everybody. So I think what I could say now with regard to your question about densities, we have to listen and we have to focus on what we know is going to be sustainable for the future.
Thank you. Rita, you're up next.
I think, Katie, within your question, there are just so many questions within your question. So kind of talking about the piece of east-west connections. It's so interesting that we live in this town that is pretty small, and there's such a divide. 3rd Street creates this very energetic barrier between what is happening on the east side of Bend, which is where I live, and what happens on the west side of Bend. And so I think it's incredibly important that we change the culture here in Bend, that all of the people that live here deserve to have safe housing. They deserve to have safe roads to drive, walk, bike on. They deserve to have all of these pieces. And the way that we do that, we don't fall into these previous ideas and these previous structures of gentrification in Bend. And by doing that is we really look at the core area. We really look at the places where we can increase housing and increase density. And we do that to support the entire community.
Thank you. Justin, you're up next.
Yeah, really, one of the hallmarks of my career so far on council has been getting east-west connections, getting the east and west connected better. And that's really, we've done that through the Empire connection, through the Murphy connection. And then density, really, there's ways to do density and still be respectful of our existing neighborhoods. One of the ways that we did that in the urban growth boundary expansion in 2016 was to identify areas that could have more density that really wouldn't impact existing neighborhoods. The Bend Central District is a good one example of that. Core Pine, there's opportunity areas built into that plan already. And so we really need to be focusing on those areas. And then as far as equity across the city goes, I'm a big proponent of a ward system. I think we need to go to a ward system. I think the next council should put an idea of a ward system out to the voters, because it would require a charter change, would change the city's constitution, and we need to do that.
Thank you. Michael.
I think it's a broad question, and I'll try to answer it as narrowly as I can. I do think it's important that Bend continues to have the livability that we have now, and we are going to get more people. And how do we do that? Well, we have to utilize the land we have. The city council can actually work to try to promote more affordable housing projects through incentives and trying to get some projects that would get some matching federal funding, like Stillwater Crossing. I think that's important. But another big component of all this affordability question is we need to attract industries to Bend that are going to pay people good salaries, and Bend can do that. Bend has all sorts of great economic potential here, and the city council can do things to attract businesses to Bend that would pay a lot of money. And frankly, I think Bend should consider doing something that Portland is doing with their marijuana taxes, which is taking a portion of their marijuana taxes and reinvesting that into minority-owned businesses. That is something I think the city of Bend should consider doing with a portion of their marijuana taxes.
Thank you. Megan, you're next.
Yeah, I think I would like to, since I already talked about density a little bit, I'd like to talk about transportation. You know, I think everyone in this town agrees that connectivity is a huge issue, whether you are a biker, a pedestrian, or a driver. And, everyone should be able to get around our city with ease, and that's just not the case right now. And we really need to work on equitable multimodal ways of getting around the city while also supporting smart growth. And, as city councilors, our role is to shepherd this process through and prioritize these projects. And so we need to be working that we're filling in gaps, we're filling in connections. But I'd like to focus on transit, because we need to start prioritizing transit, especially if we're talking about equity. City council controls a lot of these purse strings here. And if we want more equitable ways of getting around the city, and if we want more environmentally sound ways of getting around the city, and if we want less congestion on our roads, and if we want to lessen our parking problems, we have to include transit in the picture. And it's important to invest in more choice for transit, more stops and more locations, more frequency, extended hours, mobility hubs to take the burden off of Hawthorne. And we really need to invest in more rideshare opportunities as well.
Thank you. And Melanie.
Thanks, Katie. I support a lot of the ideas that have been talked about already as far as connecting our city and making sure that everyone is receiving, services and availability across town. I also think, I'm going to take this on a land use kind of side of things. We need a council that's not afraid to acknowledge the racist history of land use development in this country. Bend didn't have a development code until 1947. And a lot of these zoning laws and land use laws were created in order to segregate neighborhoods. And that is not how you create a vibrant, livable community. So those are legal barriers, that I think we are starting to look at breaking down, especially with the state law that removes single family exclusionary zoning. And I think we need to keep taking those concrete steps to say, yes, we want to have these different mixed neighborhoods. We want to have diverse neighborhoods. We don't want people in Bend to feel separated from other people in their community because of how we build and plan our city. And I think an example of this is the Bend Central District, which can really be that kind of nexus between East and West as well, and help bring some of that equity to that part of town, as long as we're making sure that we're not displacing current residents and businesses.
Sorry, Melanie. Thank you. All right. I want to welcome August Paul Johnson. Thank you. I'm glad you're able to join us. The question to the whole group at this point is about connectivity between the east side and the west side of Bend. One could argue north-south as well, and density, and what your position would be and ideas would be as a city councilor in creating connectivity and equity in east-west connections and density.
Hi, is my mic working?
Yes.
All right. Well, thank you for, allowing me on. Personally, I believe that all people, wherever you come from, whoever you are, within Bend, you know what's best for you. And if you want to see Bend have a greater connectivity between the east and west, then I urge you to come out and talk to the city councilors and really listen in to the people who are talking today. I personally believe that connectivity is the best thing possible. Human connection allows for greater experiences and the ability to work on each other and just have a better life. It's shown that people, if you have better relationships with each other, then you actually live a longer life. And so within Bend, I support the connection between the east and west, and I would love to see Bend people support that as well with the new bond approaching.
Thank you. Great. All right, we're in the wrap up now, and each of you get a minute to say a few final words to our audience today about what you hope to accomplish and who you are. So I'm going to start at the top. I'm going backwards now on the list. And Michael, you're up first.
Thank you. Thank you for the the chamber for hosting this event and for all it does for the community and all the people who work for the businesses that are part of the chamber. It's an important role that you serve in your community, and I appreciate everything that the chamber does. I appreciate all the candidates here. I appreciate all the ideas we've heard. This is my favorite part of campaigns, is to hear all the different ideas, and hopefully we all can come up with better ideas when we hear other ideas. And as our city grows, as we look to the crossing that 100,000 Rubicon, and as we get more people here, and as we're building more buildings and trying to get people to places where they can live and make it affordable and make it a great place to live like it is now, we're just going to have to use common sense, and we're going to have leadership that's willing to, at times, fight for the city. And that's why I'm running. I'm a fighter, and I'm willing to fight for the people of Bend. And I will fight for the people of Bend and the businesses of Bend if I'm elected city council. Thank you.
Thank you, Michael. Rita.
Thank you for the platform to be able to talk to so many people. Thank you for everyone who has stuck it out and listened to us all talk for the past hour and a half. My name is Rita Schinkelberg. I'm running for Bend City Council position 4, and I just think that it's incredibly important to have diversity within Bend's leadership. I think that really having a voice, a queer person of color in the Bend's leadership will mean that there will be a different perspective. And I do have a very unique lived experience living in Bend for the past 5 years, and the things that I have seen, the things that have happened to me personally, and the things that I've experienced in this campaign. And I will bring that perspective, and I will bring those ideas to leadership, and I will speak for a group of humans who haven't had a place to speak ever before. And that is so incredibly important. That's how we change leadership, and that's how we change systemic racism within local government.
Thank you, Rita. And Rondo, you're up next.
Wouldn't it be great if we could solve our problems without creating new problems, which is exactly where we're at right now in the type of economy that we have now. Justin started off this whole conversation by saying that one of the things that we need to do is rebuild our economy, but we need to rebuild it so when we were prosperous, we're all sharing in that prosperity. We need to keep our city boundaries as they are. That's the way we're going to make transit work. That's the way we're going to make connectivity work. I'm a big bicyclist commuter. I've been so for a decade now. I want to see infrastructure fixes. My God, I could tell you stories as a bicyclist, what I have to deal with trying to get around town. So yes, to better solutions that don't cause problems. No to this $190 million transportation bond. Thank you.
Thank you. Megan, you're up next.
You know, right now we're fighting something that we're still really struggling to understand, and that's this pandemic. And we're in a really unique time, which means that it requires unique leadership. And during this pandemic, we need people on city council who can collaborate and navigate partnerships. I understand how to build relationships, access resources, and communicate needs. I know how to work with limited resources, changing budgets, and policies during crises. I worked in the Senate on 9/11, and I managed a college savings program in 2008. So I'm ready to get to work on this pandemic. You know, a lot of times elections are about false choices between either or, and I think they should be about both and. We can still retain what's amazing about Bend and make it a place for everyone. We can invest in our small businesses and protect our essential workers, and we can build affordable housing and make sure our builders are in the black. So I believe my diverse background, working in public administration for nonprofits, as a small business owner, and as a community organizer means that I am up to this tough task ahead. You know, I'm proud to be endorsed by 2 sitting members of the City Council, the OLCV, Working Families Party, Labor, school board members, our former mayor, and more.
Thank you very much. All right, Chris.
Yeah, as city councilor, I look forward to continuing to serve as a public servant. I've enjoyed this position. It has given me a tremendous opportunity of continuing what I did prior to coming on council, which is to continue to listen to all perspectives and work towards common sense solutions for the city. There was an article that I published in the Bulletin back in October of 2019 that was titled Listen and Learn. It's something that we as counselors and public servants need to do and have to do. My principles going forward and have been economic growth and innovation, effective public-private partnerships through shared governance. I chair the stewardship committee for the city, which we've practiced and done that many times. I'm proud of the work that I've accomplished thus far coming in, which is McKay Park and making that safe and a livable area for everybody in Bend, especially in our guests too. Now moving forward in a pilot program for the Old Bend neighborhood associations, and then working as well with other community leaders that you've heard here about putting seats in streets and businesses so that they can survive.
Thank you. All right, Anthony.
Thank you, Katie. Thank you to the Chamber again, and thank you to everybody who's participated. Again, I'm Anthony Broadman. I'm running because we need to ensure that we plan for growth. That means being environmentally sustainable. That means building a connected transportation network. That means meaningfully addressing homelessness, which went up 12% before the pandemic. That means providing real affordable housing options for our missing middle neighbors. That means that the city is a dynamic and responsive partner to small businesses and workers. That means making sure that the promise of this city is available to every single person in it, no matter your race, no matter what country you were born in, no matter what part of this city you live in. I've started a business from scratch. My partner and I, my law partner, we started a business with 2 laptops and 2 kids under 4 each. I know what it's like to work hard. I'd be honored to have your support. Again, it's Anthony Broadman, broadmanforbend.com. Thanks.
Thanks, Anthony. Melanie.
So the next few years are going to be critical for Bend's development into a sustainable city and community. We have to plan for our economic recovery, what our future growth will look like, and how we can make Bend a great place that's affordable and welcoming. I believe I'm the best choice to join our city council and lead in this moment. Unlike my opponent, I agree with the council's decision to act quickly to help our businesses get through the pandemic by opening up street space downtown. I think we need to invest now in our transportation system, and I want us to have a robust Human Rights and Equity Commission to listen and act when our communities of color tell us what they need. We need to move forward boldly on the challenges we're facing in order to reach Bend's full potential as a livable city surrounded by natural beauty. I'll use my background as an attorney working for the public to make positive differences for the city of Bend. I hope I've earned your vote today. I'm proud to be endorsed by former Mayor Jim Clinton, former Mayor Pro Tem Mark Capel, the Oregon League of Conservation Voters, the Working Families Party, and more. Please reach out to me with any questions and head to my website, melaniekeebler.com. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you, Melanie. And Justin.
Thank you, Katie. Thank you to the Bend Chamber of Commerce. 4 years ago, I promised to tackle Bend's big problems, like crumbling streets and a lack of affordable housing, without raising taxes on people already struggling to make ends meet. Since I entered office, Bend has repaired a record number of lane miles of streets without resorting to a regressive gas tax, made key improvements to our transportation system, like Empire and Murphy corridors, and implemented a wide variety of affordable housing policies. Bend's biggest challenge today is the economic distress caused to residents and businesses by COVID-19. I support efforts to reduce the burden the city places on those most affected by the economic slowdown. I'm proudly endorsed by the Bend Chamber PAC, current Mayor Pro Tem Bruce Abernathy, and former Mayor Casey Rhodes. Thank you for your time today. I have asked for your vote this November.
Thank you. And our last up is August. August, go ahead.
All right. As a person, I believe in rugged individualism. That's where you believe that you can do anything you want in this country if you have the time and the energy and the push to do so. I believe that in Bend, every person should have the availability to get out and get a job and go and live basically their dreams, as long as it's by law. Everyone knows that. But I really want to push for the expansion of Bend and the building of more businesses to allow more capital for Bend to grow upon, so that people can get to the point where they want to be. You can find my website at augustjohnsonforbend.squarespace.com. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, August. And thank you to every single one of these candidates that we've all heard from today. Again, I want to thank you for being out there, running for office, and serving us, the community, in that capacity, and for answering the questions today. Really respect all of you for going through this shotgun approach to figuring out how do we get to as many questions as possible with a very limited amount of time. So thank you again. And also big thanks to Miller Lumber and Sun West Builders who made this possible. And want to remind you that the County Commission Forum is September 29th at noon. That's an hour long with Phil Chang and Phil Henderson, Commissioner Henderson. And so that's next Tuesday. And we thank you all for spending so much time with us today, and be safe out there.